In this video, I'm going to be sharing segments from a transcript from a former Palantir employee who was leading up the commercial division of the company. Now, I've found this transcript super insightful about how Palantir is going about business and sees itself within the market, and as AIP continues to develop and become an even more important aspect of the Palantir story, getting to the bottom of how it fits in and how the sales process works is of the utmost importance. So I'm not able to share the full transcript with you, just some segments that I feel are the most relevant. So without further ado, please enjoy what I have pulled together.
AI is changing every 3 to 6 months. If you fast forward, every 6 months is totally different. A lot of the Fortune 500, they just cannot keep up with what's going on. This is why they need like a trusted partner to guide them. And then we also have software as accelerator to help them achieve the launch language model adoption journey. But let's unpack this from a few different levels. So what value is being created? So one bucket, as you mentioned, is revenue expansion, and the other one is cost reduction. And I want to separate these two. The revenue expansion is something that requires touching the customer, the end user. This is the holy grail that everyone wants to get to. But everyone, from our experience and observation, is starting with cost reduction first. Not because they don't care about revenue expansion, but because they want to have us handle of the technology first. They want to know what the boundary conditions are, what it can do, and it cannot do, because it's much better to dock food your internal groups with new technology that expose issues to your customers. So maybe another way to answer your question is from a sequencing perspective. We see enterprises trying a cost reduction first before touching the revenue expansion opportunity. I would say that one can argue that the name generative AI may not be the best name for this technology. It's also good at a lot of stuff that are non-generative. Now suddenly all the non-experts can perform functions like experts do, simply because the onboarding time is so much faster. I think this is where it's going to unlock a lot of the opportunities and increase the productivity across the board. All the way down from a blue-collar worker who used to need to ask a bunch of data scientists, how can I get this data? And now they can self-service something like this to even the CFO wants to know something. In the past, they need to ask their direct reports, can you assemble this data for me? And now the CFO can self-service information. And we believe that this has productivity improvement across the top to the bottom spectrum of organizations. One way is to think about what are the repeatable things that everyone is doing across the board in your organization. And you can make an argument on that. So maybe it's interesting to revisit, for OpenAI defines AGI. They define AGI into we believe that most of the economic work can be done by machines. And then the question is, as long as you can give someone instructions, then the machine will be able to follow instructions and execute on this. I think this is what the future will look like. Are we there yet? No. Software companies like Snowflake are having a hard time to catch up. This is because the vision keeps changing. What good looks like to keep changing, even if you have talent. If the vision keeps changing, it's impossible to capture when you don't even know where the destination is. One way is to save $10 million, and another way is to make $10 million. Maybe what I'm trying to say is, internal-facing application is the step one versus external application. I can have internal applications that are geared towards revenue producer as long as my end users, my customers, are not touching it. So even if the software is not working, it's okay. So from a revenue-making generation perspective, if you're wearing a sales hat, there are so many examples out there. So I think there are a lot of things that many people are already tackling. In terms of cost reduction, this is interesting because if you allow your salespeople to be more productive, they generate more revenue in a sense. You're reducing the cost to hire more salespeople. So I feel like this is something that you can make an argument both sides as well. I will give you a very simple framework, maybe overly simplistic, but it's a two-step process. Step one, how much customization is needed to achieve your workflow? If it's not too much customization needed, then maybe you can just use Gong or one of those SaaS companies out there, Or you can use ChatGPT for enterprise, for example, meaning the out-of-the-box solution is going to achieve 80% or 90% of what you need. Then just go with it. I'll give you two extreme examples. One is a mom-and-pop shop that maybe it's just a restaurant. Another one is a Fortune 500 global enterprise, but a lot of different functional matrix organization, the class geography. In the mom-and-pop restaurant, what is my revenue? This is something that we don't need much customization because maybe there's only one way to answer that question. Then when you're asking a CEO of a multinational global conglomerate, how do you even answer that question? There are different definitions. When someone asks a question, there are some assumptions being made. It has to be respectful to your organization, organizational structure, hierarchy, maybe some specific accounting reporting cadence or structure. There are a lot of nuances in the accounting, for example. So this is where the customization comes in. The litmus test, I would say, is if you can helicopter someone that graduated from college to help this mom and pop shop or restaurant to answer the revenue question versus a CEO of Fortune 500, can you do the job without much context? I think the answer is obvious. I think the benefit of companies like OpenAI and all of these large language models is it makes deploying the model so much easier because it's simply an API call. So you're right, any software engineer can deploy the model super easy. And now when you think about a production workflow that require reliable, scalable, low latency, then you're not talking about just one API call. You're talking about using a lot of these APIs together, deal with all kinds of scenarios and making sure that you have fallback solution. It doesn't fail and it has to be reliable. And why this is hard, because this is something that, as you said, is only 11 months in the journey. People haven't done this before. This is truly pushing the boundary conditions of what AI can and cannot do, and this is why it's hard. The reason why this is hard is because the goalpost, the vision keeps changing, and many companies are caught off guard when the reality is changed. So then there are a few things I would look for. What problems are they trying to solve? Are they trying to solve a low-hanging fruit problem? Or are they trying to solve a really hard problem? If they're trying to solve a low-hanging fruit problem, it's possible that the problem may not exist 6 months from now. So this is number one. Number two, the second thing I would look for is how close are they to be at the forefront of pushing the boundary of what AI can and cannot be. If they are pushing the boundary in an active way, then they will get the best signal on when they should pivot, when they should stick around. If they're not pushing the boundary, that means they're always trying to play a catch-up game, and they will always get caught off guard when things change. So these are the things I would look for. Like, are they playing a catch-up game? Are they constantly trying to catch up? And I think most companies are just trying to catch up right now. Or are they really trying to push things forward? Number one. And number two, are they trying to solve a simple or hard problem? I think the superpower the large language model unlocks is the ability to deal with unstructured data. And anyone whose job is primarily to deal with unstructured data will be impacted one way or another. On the flip side, if someone's job is mostly to do with structured data, I think they will be impacted, but to a much less extent. And the reason is, the bar for unstructured data automation is so much higher, because when you deal with structured data, it is so much higher. Because one, we have decades of experience dealing with this. If you need to do above and beyond, the bar is actually really high. Versus for unstructured data, we truly don't have a ton of experience. So anything is better than nothing. This is number one. And number two, for structured data, that's oftentimes only one incorrect answer. And if you mess something up, your answer is wrong. Versus unstructured data, there are oftentimes many different answers. If you mess it up, it's unclear that you're actually wrong. So the bar is very different. For example, if you're a trader and you need to analyze a ton of financial data, that is structured to be, though. If you're a financial analyst, where you are dealing with PowerPoint, Word document, Excel, those are actually unstructured data.